This is Josh Friedman coming to you from Kigali, Rwanda. I am outside one of the city's main bus stations, and in just a few hours I'm going to be embarking on a bus ride to Kampala, Uganda, as someone screams Muzungu at me. I don't know what these people want. I'm pretty used to getting screamed Muzungu at by now, though. It's been a few months of that. Now someone's hanging out in the back of my shot. That's interesting. Anyway, there's an interesting development. It's actually been going on for a week or more now. There's been an impasse on the Rwandan-Ugandan border, exactly where I'm going to be heading tonight. And I thought, what better of an opportunity to share a little bit about that with you. So here's the scoop. Here's what's happening, at least as far as I understand. There's a bit of a diplomatic crisis right now between Rwanda and Uganda. Rwanda has closed the border, did so about a week ago, to cargo truck traffic coming through from Uganda into Rwanda. Boy, these people really like hanging out in the back of my shot. And also, the Rwandan government temporarily banned its own citizens from crossing into Uganda. So what's happened is there's been a major backup of trucks on the border. Possibly I will be seeing that tonight. We'll see. The government's been saying that's been letting some trucks through, or at least rerouting them to different border crossings where maybe they're going through, maybe not. We'll see what, if anything, I see tonight. It's probably dark in the middle of the night, but I've talked with some people who've crossed back and forth, and they have said that there's a pileup on the border. Now this is very interesting for a variety of reasons. There's so many storylines in this little spat between, well, maybe it's more than just a little spat between Uganda and Rwanda. I guess the first storyline is that both Rwanda and Uganda are members of what's called the East African community. I've actually spent my entire trip so far, my entire East Africa trip, in the East Africa community. It's basically a little trade or economic bloc, but they have the intent to really integrate the region in a variety of ways, to integrate it through infrastructure, to integrate it through trade, to integrate it through some common governance policies, one of which is that there is now a common visa policy. Not all the countries that are in the East African community, I believe it's 5 or 6, Tanzania is one of them, but not all of them have implemented this East Africa visa policy. But both Rwanda and Uganda have. Kenya has as well. So I'm actually traveling right now on an East Africa visa. I'll be traveling tonight between Rwanda and Uganda on an East Africa visa as part of this show of unity and integration in this East Africa community. Yet, as these countries talk about integrating more, there's a pretty tense standoff right now. Now, some of the background to this, well, pretty much all of the background surrounds the two presidents. So what I haven't discussed in my other Rwanda reports is that Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, has a long history with Uganda. Before he was fighting in leading the Tutsi rebellion and the civil war here, and then putting an end to the genocide, and later becoming president and remaining president. Before all that, Kagame was a rebel and also a rebel leader in Uganda. He was one of the many Rwandans who was living in Uganda because of the events of the past half century or so, and he was actually instrumental in bringing the current and long-standing Ugandan President Museveni to power. Museveni came to power following a rebellion in Uganda that these guys are distracting me. That Paul Kagame was involved in fights. So Paul Kagame was fighting in this rebellion to overthrow the Ugandan government, and that ended up bringing Museveni to power in Uganda back in the 80s, and he's remained in power in Uganda ever since. And then obviously, considering one's been in power since 86, another's been in power since 2000, and in a sense they're like tribal warlords in the region. Now I know there's far more to their personas than that, particularly Kagame, who I discussed at length, has done an almost miraculous job in raising the standard of living and all kinds of standards in this country. But then fast forward from the 80s, another decade plus, and after the conclusion of the genocide in Rwanda, the Congo Wars, the very deadly Congo Wars, kicked off, in part because of the issues that emerged from the Rwandan genocide. And both Rwanda and Uganda were fighting in the Congo Wars. And over in Congo, Rwanda and Uganda, in a sense, turned on each other and ended up clashing with one another. So we're only a couple decades removed from actual violent military clashes between Rwanda and Uganda, and both of them have these former rebel leaders turned long-standing presidents who are known to be strongmen. So some people in the region do worry that if tensions boil over, then something really ugly could happen. To me, this is all just a little strange in the sense that you have this kind of tension and the possibility for violence, not that I'm expecting it, but the possibility within this East Africa community that's supposed to, kind of in a similar way to how things have come about in the European Union, these states are supposed to integrate with each other and merge various policies and become a lot closer with each other. And I'm not saying this is the EU, but to some extent it's a little bit modeled after it. And you'd think that if this is modeled after something that's intended to put a stop to war through economic integration, then you wouldn't have talk of cutting off or putting a halt to economic integration and having some warlike rhetoric start popping up. Now, I haven't yet explained to you what the allegations are, and I'll do it right now. I'll do it quickly. I don't know what truth there is to that, but this is what the Rwandan government is saying for its reasoning as to why it shut down the border to cargo traffic and it told its citizens not to cross into Uganda. So it's given a few reasons which seem to be a bit inflammatory. Once again, I have no idea as to the truth of the allegations. So the Rwandan government has said that Rwandan citizens in Uganda have been frequently harassed, arrested, incarcerated, and tortured. Those are some pretty serious allegations. And on top of that, the Rwandan government accuses the Ugandan government of harboring rebel groups inside Uganda that are attempting to overthrow the Rwandan government. And there are specific groups that they've named, and they do exist, but I don't know, I have no idea what truth there is to the allegations that the Ugandan government is harboring them and has any interest in overthrowing the Rwandan government. I can't comment to you about that. But also the Rwandan government is saying that there's a physical problem at the border, that there's infrastructure trouble, that there's construction going on there, and that traffic needs to be rerouted. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. I mean, I wouldn't be so quick to assume that when there are such serious allegations being thrown around that this border dispute is over some construction issue at the border. That's just my hunch. Anyway, I'm not going to continue on forever about this. People love staring at me as I film this. I don't really mind. It's kind of a fitting place to film it, given that I've got some lights and truck traffic and truck right here and bus traffic and whatnot. So anyway, this is just a very interesting and timely development in the middle of my East Africa trip, but it's also a good time to introduce some of the regional issues and tensions, as well as the effort to integrate this region into the East Africa community. So thank you very much for watching. Merkosi Chani, goodbye, and I'll see you in Uganda, hopefully.